Hi everybody, this is Deborah Stewart, and I am going to work on a pastel diptych today. And I recently made a video about the pastel that's on my back wall. It's still there because I realized I ran out of glassine paper, so I've got to order some more paper, some glassine paper to store it. So it's going to stay there for a while. But there's different ways that you can start a diptych in pastel. You could put up 2 pieces of paper. You could put up just 1 piece of paper like I have here. I could put up this 1 piece of paper and put a piece of tape down the middle. Or I can start the whole painting just as one painting and then cut it in half. That's what I'm going to do, because that will stop me from thinking about it being 2 pieces, and once I cut it apart, then it will be more unified. So that's why I'm going to do this. Now, I'm not going to make a flower. I'm not going to make a landscape. I'm not going to make anything. I've been in a non-objective frame of mind, but I'll go back to doing some flowers here eventually. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some cadmium red, golden fluid acrylics down, and I'm going to put some black down. And I might even put a little bit of the black into the red to kind of make more of a deep red, some kind of a version. So my first thing is going to be to put down a big brush strokes of color. And I'll think about, where am I going to put that color down? Am I going to start it at the bottom? Am I going to start it at the top? Where's that movement going to be? Sometimes that's just kind of an impulse, and it's just, I don't think about it a whole lot, and I don't take a whole lot of time to put this underpainting down. So that's what I'm going to do next, so stay tuned. Okay, so I am going to put down my underpainting here, and I poured out my paint onto this plate here. I'm not so sure my paint didn't settle a little bit. I should have shaken it up because I haven't used it. Yes, I can see the difference there. And I've got a bucket of water, and I have a damp brush. So I'm going to put down some red. I'm not going to put a lot on it. Put it down pretty strong in the beginning. And then I will add a little water to it, which I'm going to do right now. So now I will add some water to it. That's how I'll get some light areas and some dark areas, some more intense areas. And okay, I like that. I like these light areas. So gee, I hate to mess that up with a little black, but I do think I'm going to put just a touch of black now into this red, which I know will change up the color some. Give me some darker red, and maybe that will be enough. Let's see, where should I put this darker red? I think I'll put some right here. I don't want to go overboard on it. And then I think I'll put some maybe right here. And then I will again clean off my brush so I have some wet, just water. And I'm going to do that. All right, you know, that might be enough. Maybe I'll put a little bit more down. I'll put a little here. See, when you mix the red and the black, then you're getting a really nice purple also. All right. So that was probably enough of that, and because the paper is now wet, those colors are bleeding together. And this is an experimental process. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some mark making down here before I even dry this with the hairdryer. I am just going to put some marks in here, and you know, when I do this, I always know these things are going to even disappear after I put clear gesso on, and this is just things that are underneath a pastel, so I don't even worry about it too much. They're just kind of random things that I put down. And I also think I'm going to take some water-soluble Derwent charcoal. I'm going to put that right there. Well, I like that. All right, and take a little bit more of that. I'm not going to do too much of this, what I'm doing right here, because I want to keep some of the freshness of that underpainting. I kind of am a little sorry I did that right there. So what can I do to kind of adjust that? I might put in now I have these that I think I'm going to add also, and these are the Charvan water-soluble pastels. So I think I'll put a few of these in. Now that's kind of nice. That kind of covered up that thing there that I wasn't sure I liked. So I could put a little bit more mark making with these. The red, I don't want to go overboard like I said, but I also know that what I'm doing there is going to get covered up. So this is just kind of an underneath layer. I want to have some dark, some bold, some white, some more grayish, and I may have just enough right there. I also have this water-soluble piece of graphite here. So I can have add a little bit more kind of mark making. And I think I might just have just enough right there to be able to see just what might happen with this piece. And I'm going to leave it right like that. I kind of like what I'm seeing, so just kind of playing and putting down some dark areas, some intense areas, some different mark making, and experimenting in that stage. So here I used a piece of the Reeves BFK paper. It's printmaking paper. And I use it because it will dry fairly flat eventually. Is it really super flat right now? No. It's got buckles in it, but I've dried it with my hair dryer, flattened it out. I've dried all of these areas of wet paint. So now I can apply clear gesso on top of it. What else could you use besides the Reeves BFK? You could use a piece of rag mat board, watercolor paper, any kind of a paper that you can get wet and layer, because this is the first layer. My clear gesso is going to be the second layer, then my pastels. You couldn't put this on a drawing paper, newsprint. You know, you have to have it on paper that's going to hold up to getting wet, whatever paper that might be. So next I am going to apply some clear gesso. And the other thing I want to say is I used red, I used some black. Use whatever color you want to use. What color appeals to you right now? Go with that color. And then add a little bit of black to it to darken it up, or its complementary color. I could have, instead of using black, maybe I could have used like some kind of a green. And that would have made, say, an olive green or a brown instead of this black. But I like red and black. So I am going to apply the Liquitex Clear Gesso to this next with this dry bristle brush that I have. And you can only use the Liquitex as far as the Clear Gesso goes, but you can also use golden ground for pastel. I'm going to put this right over everything. It is going to smear certain things. It's probably going to smear this red a little bit. I apply it really liberally. And if I don't scrub it a lot, that will stay. Now it's kind of cloudy when it's going on, but once it dries, it'll be totally clear. So I look at this as the foundation, the beginning stages, and it's going to change as I continue to work on it. And I like starting like this instead of the two separate pieces of paper, but that's up to you if you want to start with the two separate pieces of paper. I like this because it's the surprise factor, and I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen and and I'm not thinking about two pieces of artwork. I'm just thinking about starting this experimental layer and then seeing what happens with it. What can I do with it? Okay, I want to make sure I've covered everything up with this clear gesso. I have a little bit extra here, so just want to make sure I get it all down, everything covered, and I've applied it pretty liberally. So now I will put this brush in water, but I always use a dry brush because I don't want the clear gesso to get diluted. If it gets diluted with water, it won't have as much texture. So if you've dipped your brush in water and you don't feel any texture, that's probably the reason why. Now I'm going to dry it with my hair dryer again. So I've dried this a little bit, but I think I am going to let it just sit and dry a little bit more. And I want this to flatten out a little bit more, but as I feel around different places, I can feel that I feel this texture, which is really what I want. And you could see as I went over this with the brush, it really didn't disturb a lot of the mark making that I had because of the kind of brush that I used. It was a pretty soft brush, but it's a natural bristle brush, and that's what I prefer because I want texture. And if I was to use a smooth brush, like a nylon brush, it would be much smoother. I like to feel that more of a rough texture. I use a wide nylon brush for the underpainting because I want big strokes of color. I don't use tiny brushes. I want big strokes of color, and so I use that nylon brush then. But then I use the bristle brush to apply the Liquitex clear gesso. So I'm going to let this sit for a little bit, dry some more, go have lunch, go for a walk, and then I'll come back and I'm going to cut it in half. Okay, so I've let this dry overnight, and some of the places that were a little more buckled yesterday are just fine now. And I felt all the way around it, and I've only feel one place, a small place where I didn't get the gesso, and I just don't feel like doing it now, so I'm going to leave it just the way it is. So I can keep working. Now, and I've tested out some colors here on my paper towel. So I have picked out some pastels in some kind of burgundy, red, yellow, orange, red, violet, some light reds, and then some kind of flesh colored. And then I picked out some muted greens with blue green, some brown, you know, some really neutral colors. So I'm going to start with those colors, and I can always go back and add a few more as I finish things up, but those are the colors I'm going to start with. So I like to test things out on the paper towel because it helps me clean off the pastels and also see the colors and what colors I'm looking for. And I usually look for complementary colors, but also analogous colors. So analogous colors being right next to each other on the color scheme, on the color wheel, like red, red, violet, red, orange, and then blue, green, green, and what else would be there? Blue, green, green, and yellow, green. So that's where I'm going to start. And I'm thinking I want to keep this a little bit more muted with that, really keeping that bold red that I have. So I'm probably going to start by just laying in some wide areas of color. And I'll probably start with some of the dark areas. So and I follow my underpainting here. And that's what I'm going to do. I think I'll just lay in a little bit of color first, and then I'm going to cut this apart. So that's my intention, is to cut this apart. And maybe what I'll do right now is I'm going to put a piece of tape down the middle, and I will use some art tape. Okay, everybody, you know, I'm making these videos on my own, so I don't have a film crew that says, guess what? That's not recording. So I recorded, well, what I thought I was doing, recording my application of pastel on this, and it didn't record anything. So I'm just going to talk about it a little, and then I'm going to cut it apart. So I want to check again to make sure it's recording, and it is. Okay, so I picked out a variety of pastels, including variations and values in red. I have got some pure red, some burgundy, some really bright red orange, some red violet, some dark red violet, and even a gray that has a reddish tinge, or a, you know, kind of a violet tinge, and then some lighter red violet. That's what I have put down in various directions, and I've put some wide strokes of color. I put some marks going different directions, and then I also started putting in some neutrals, some brown, some dark bluish gray, greenish gray, and then I started thinking about the background and how when I painted it, I left it all white, but I do not want the background to be all white. I'm going to keep it a light value, but I want to change and have a color shift. So I may make this area darker, this area lighter, or maybe this area darker and this area lighter. Probably the white right in the middle as kind of a punch. And so right now I am at the point where I need to take a photograph of this, and I also need to take this tape out. I put this tape down so that I could eventually cut this apart, and maybe I should have just left it. I think I'm going to. I think I'm going to put it back because when I take it off, there's not a real clear division. So I think I'm going to take a scissors and just cut right down the middle of this tape. So then I have my diptych. And then I will look at each one separately to see what does each one need. So that's going to be my next step, and I'll make sure it's recording as I finish this up. But hopefully you have enough information to see what it is I've been doing. So I had said that I look at pastel just like painting. I don't look at it as drawing at all. Even though you're making marks directly on paper, I look at pastel as painting. But instead of having paint on the end of a brush with a handle, you've got it directly on your fingers and it's going down. So I'm going to cut this apart and then I'm going to finish it up. I'm going to take a picture of each one. Like I said, look at it, see what do they need, what do I need to make stand out, how does it look when I take them apart. Okay, so now I have taken them apart, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take photographs of them. Right now, as I look at it the way that it is, I like this side better than this side. So I need to think about why is that? And should I even flip them a different direction? Because they are diptychs, it doesn't mean I have to keep them the same direction. I can flip them upside down and see, do I like them better this way? So that's going to be the next thing I'm going to do. It's going to be kind of an evaluation stage. How am I going to wrap these up? What direction do they go? And the photograph always gives me information that helps me wrap things up. So that's my next step. Okay, so I am wrapping up my work on this pastel, and I did take some pictures, and then I realized I realized that this one was stronger than this one. So what I've done here is this area was too light. There was nothing interesting. So I did add some more bolder marks of color, and there was a dark kind of a clump right there that I tried to extend with some wine color down farther. And then I did add some different colors of greens and some mark making. A lighter green here, kind of this mineral green there and there, And then I started adding a little bit of violet, and I think it also probably needs little bits of brown. I have some over here, none over here. So I needed a little bit more of that brown. And then I thought, when I looked at it, I thought, okay, I think we could use a little bit of blue violet. So I'm not so sure if this isn't just blue, but that was my thought here about needing to add some color. And some places that I have don't really have much pastel. So I need to find a similar color of the underpainting that I can add here to the pastel. So I've gone in now and I've added some brighter, bolder colors. I still need some pastel up here, so I keep looking for some alternatives as far as a really light neutral. I don't want a pinkish, I don't want blue, I want some kind of a really light, kind of an ochre, you know, a warm natural color. I might have found one right here. So let me try this. I want to save the white just for accents. So I think, and I want the white kind of more centered in the middle. So I do want some of this color. Now, one of the things that helped me decide what to do, as I was saying earlier, was I took photographs. I looked at the photos on, well, now see that, lighten that up a little bit, which actually kind of needed. So it's toning down this white just a bit. Because like I had said earlier, I do not want this background to be all the same color. I want to have some really white. I want to have some really bold white. And what I've used to get that has been this Diane Townsend. So it's like having a big, you know, paintbrush full of white paint, and it gives you these really fat marks, which I like to use at the end. And we'll get those marks to go different ways, different directions. So I'm kind of liking that better. And I only have so many colors of that Diane Townsend. So yeah, that's my goal, is to buy a few more colors, because I do like to use them right at the end. So the green, I think, was a good touch, along with some of this really warm brown, which I also like. And I'm at the stage right now where I like it better than I did, but for the sake of this video, I think I'm probably gonna stop. Here's some of this gray, blue, violet, which is really nice. And I did go in with this purple Townsend. It gives you those nice bold marks. Now, I don't use that pastel for everything, but like I said, right at the end, it's just a great, great pastel because they have grit in them. And there's a pink, which is a nice addition, I think, with this red, having, you know, a little bit of this pink. Kind of nice. A nice extra touch. I think I bought a lot of these colors thinking of floral pastels. So I'm going to say right now that I am going to declare this finished, I think. And I'm liking it much better than I did. Here's a little bit of orange Townsend that I haven't, you know, it adds those nice little pops of color, which is just really great to have. So I think this is probably sufficient at this point. It was fun. I didn't know where it was going to go, how it was going to end up, and it finally came about in a way that I'm happy with. So I like it so much better than I did. And so I am going to say here that we are done with this. All right, well, I don't know whether that needed to be there. I think I'll put a little white over that. Okay. So I am going to say I am finished.